Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I had a whole bunch of people send me this story. They thought I'd be interested, and I am. Alan, Douglas, Jay, Dennis, Joseph, and Andrew all sent it to me. It's about civil asset forfeiture, and it's good news for once, which is pretty cool. And I'm going to let you know right now, this is the fourth take on this video. I've actually screwed it up 3 times already. So I told myself I'm not going to get up and walk around and restart the camera, nor am I going to make any edits. So if I make any mistakes from this point forward, I'm leaving them in. That's a daring thing to say at the beginning of a video. But good news in the field of civil asset forfeiture. In case you don't know, civil asset forfeiture is the idea that you're traveling with money or other valuables, or you're just simply minding your own business with money or other valuables, and you come into contact with law enforcement, and they just take your stuff. They take your money, they take your valuables, and go, you know something? We think this is either evidence of or fruit of a crime, and if you want it back, sue us. And it's been going on for hundreds of years. This is actually something that goes way, way back. It's not a recent invention. And don't get me wrong, if somebody's running a huge criminal enterprise and when they bust it, they find all kinds of stuff, including money made from that enterprise, most people say, you know something, the government should be allowed to take that money. But that's usually associated with a trial where somebody gets convicted and it's obvious that that money's involved. The vast majority of civil asset forfeiture cases do not involve charges even being filed, let alone criminal convictions. So most people, when they first hear about civil asset forfeiture, go, this can't be real. It's unconstitutional to take your money without due process. But like I said, they do it anyways. So this is good news. The DEA is going to return $43,000 seized from a Tampa woman at an airport. The DEA dropped its attempt to keep the money 2 months after the woman joined a class action lawsuit challenging the cash seizures at airports. And CJ Ciaramella wrote the story, and Reason.com has been doing a great job on this, just keeping this topic in the forefront of the news. But the DEA is going to return more than $43,000 seized from a Tampa woman at an airport after she joined a class action lawsuit challenging the agency's practice of using civil asset forfeiture to confiscate cash from travelers. So she was carrying $43,167 from her as she's trying to fly home to Tampa from Wilmington, North Carolina. She says the cash was after she sold a used car, as well as money she and her husband intended to take to a casino. She's now a named plaintiff in a class action civil rights lawsuit filed in January by the Institute for Justice. Although it is legal to fly domestically with large amounts of undeclared cash, the DEA and the TSA have a practice or policy of seizing currency from travelers at U.S. airports without probable cause, simply if you travel with more than $5,000. You are legally allowed to travel with money domestically. There's no law against it. But they seize the money anyways. The practice, the suit argues, violates travelers' Fourth Amendment rights. In a letter to Jones's attorney, the DEA announced it would be returning all of her money. And by the way, this is a defense tactic. If you get sued in a class action, you have to look and see who's suing you, and it'll say this person, and all others similarly situated, which is the class. But there are class reps. And so if you can settle out the class reps, then the question becomes, how viable is the lawsuit? So they have to go find another class rep. But there are a couple class reps, I think, in this case, and settling out with one of them won't necessarily make the lawsuit go away. Now, the woman says getting my money back is a big relief, but DEA never should have taken it in the first place. And going through this nightmare, I found out that I'm not the only innocent American who's been treated this way. I hope that my continuing lawsuit will end the government's practice of treating people flying with cash like criminals. So apparently, she's going to keep pushing the lawsuit. Under civil asset forfeiture laws, police and prosecutors can seize property when the property is suspected of being connected to criminal activity, even if the owner is never charged or convicted of a crime. Law enforcement groups say the practice allows them to disrupt organized crime like drug trafficking by targeting its illicit proceeds. And of course, they get to keep the money. That's one of the problems, is that many states allow this agency that seizes it, or the federal government allows the agency that seizes it, to keep some of the money. So they're incentivized to find cash. Civil liberties groups say civil asset forfeiture has too few procedural protections for property owners and creates perverse incentives for police to seize cash based on mere suspicion. Reason reported on this woman's case in September when she joined the class action suit as a plaintiff. After flying from Tampa to North Carolina for a casino reopening last May, she and her husband had dinner with friends who were interested in buying a car the couple owned. They paid for it in cash. When the couple had to cut their trip short because of death in the family, she put the money, along with cash she'd been gambling, or for gambling, in a carry-on bag and headed for the airport in Wilmington, never realizing that it was possible that she could lose the money by being robbed by the DEA. Robbed is the word they use in the article, and I agree with it. A local sheriff's deputy alerted the presence of seizable cash by TSA screeners, grilled Jones and her husband about the money, and deemed their explanation was fishy, even after he called their friend who confirmed the car purchase, but was unable to say exactly how many miles were on the odometer. Quick. How many miles are on the odometer of your car right now? Quick, tell me. You're a criminal. The deputy called in 2 DEA agents who interrogated the couple some more and then announced they were seizing the money based on the suspicion it was related to drug trafficking. Now, how do you get drug trafficking out of this? A couple is traveling with cash. Must be drug trafficking. Well, wait a second. Why not confiscate the drug? Oh, there weren't any. That's weird. One of the other named plaintiffs in the lawsuit is a 79-year-old retired railroad engineer who had his entire life savings of $82,000 seized by the DEA after his daughter tried to take it on a flight out of Pittsburgh with the intent of depositing it in a bank. After the case went public, the DEA returned the money. In 2016, a USA Today investigation found the DEA seized more than $209 million from at least 5,000 travelers in 15 major airports over the previous decade. A 2017 report by the Justice Department Office of Inspector General found that the DEA seized more than $4 billion in cash from people suspected of drug activity over the previous decade, but $3.2 billion of that were never connected to any criminal charges. And that's the easiest way that you could solve this problem. Pass a law that says that civil asset forfeiture is no longer the case. It can only be criminal asset forfeiture. The distinction is that there must be a criminal action tied to the money, and there must be a conviction. And you then ask either the judge or the jury to say, by the way, is this money here connected to this crime here? If so, it gets forfeited. Without all of those steps, you can't do it. That's what they should do. But as of right now, no one's doing that. We are glad she'll get her money back, but it is shameful that federal agents keep targeting innocent flyers at our nation's airports. The Institute for Justice senior attorney Dan Albin said, "We're going to keep fighting to end TSA's and DEA's unconstitutional and unlawful practices of seizing people and their cash without reasonable suspicion or probable cause." And I just realized that I just made a slight repeat, which I promised I would not edit out, so I won't edit it out. This is like a behind the scenes of Lehto's Law. But in reading this story, I left out the names of the people who had their money seized because they didn't ask for the publicity and they were never charged with crimes. So don't get me wrong. I mean, it's important they report their stories, but do we need to know their names? And I don't know if they actually want their names associated with the story. I'm assuming that they don't mind. They're part of a lawsuit, for instance. But in my mind, the names are unimportant because that could be you. It could be me. Now I, having done these stories, understand I don't ever carry large quantities of cash. I don't. And so one of the strange things about this is that after I run these stories, people will contact me or they'll comment below the video and they'll say, "Steve, I got a question for you. What if I have to? What if I have to go someplace and travel with cash? Like, let's suppose I'm found my dream car. I've been looking for this car, found the dream car. It's 3 counties away, but it's right across the state line. 2 counties in my state, 1 county in their state. And so I got to drive 3 counties away, and the guy will only accept cash. He says he'll meet me. He's got the title, he's got the keys, he's got the car. He'll sign it all over right there, boom, but he'll only accept cash. Well, there are ways you can get cash at the other end of your trip, hopefully. Talk to your bank and so on about doing that. But I've had people say, but what about on the weekend? What about on Sunday? And the point that you have to jump through all these hoops when you're not breaking any laws should be an indication of how stupid this idea is, that the government can just take your money. And we all know, and again, John Oliver, the guy on HBO, did a great piece on civil asset forfeiture. Look it up. Other people have talked about this as well. This is not my thing. It's just a thing that's out there. A lot of people are upset by this. But we've heard stories about departments that have actually shifted their crime fighting over to money finding. And they actually will spend more time working the cases where they might find cash than they will trying to solve other crimes that don't involve cash. And then they wind up doing things like buying Super Bowl tickets or daiquiri makers and so on with the money. And those are things they've actually bought with this money. Because what happens is some little sheriff's department in Turkey Elbow, Kentucky, comes into $9 million in cash. Well, they buy a couple armored personnel carriers, and now they got money left over. What do they do with the money? And, well, they don't want to, sheet it to the government, so they got to spend it somehow. Next thing you know, they got all kinds of crazy stuff they're buying with the money. But, again, they're incentivized to find the money and take it. And they take it from people who are innocent. And so when you are traveling through an airport with $43,000 because you just sold a car, and they say, we don't believe you. So what? This is America. I don't have to explain to you why I sold a car. If you can charge me the crime, charge me the crime. But don't take my stuff from me. That's theft. There's no question that's theft. So whether it violates the Fourth Amendment or the Fifth Amendment or violates the Constitution, violates everything. The idea that you can own stuff in America, that's like as American as it gets. Your stuff is your stuff. Man's home is his castle, And the idea that the government can just go, I want that. And they just take it from you. And then people say, but Steve, you sue them and you ask for attorney fees. You won't get them. In America, you don't get your attorney fees just because you won. And by the way, who'd pay your attorney fees? Taxpayers. So the whole notion of civil asset forfeiture is crazy. It's wrong on every level, and it needs to be ended. And the way you end it is you turn it into criminal asset forfeiture. And again, you can only seize the money if someone gets arrested and charged with a crime. If they're not charged with a crime, you give them their money back. If they are charged with a crime, you can only keep the money if they're convicted, and the court also says, along with the conviction, that money is the result of that crime. So that way they can't, grab you at the airport with your $43,000 and say, oh, we caught you with a pair of nail clippers in your purse. Therefore, we're going to say that you were trying to get on the plane to commit a crime with those nail clippers, and therefore we're going to keep your $43,000. The money has to be tied to the crime in some way. And if they did that, this would almost completely disappear as a problem. Again, if they catch somebody who's running a criminal enterprise and they're selling all kinds of bad stuff on the streets of America, and you bust it up and you find the equipment they used to make the stuff, you find the equipment they used to count the money, you find the stuff that they used to protect all their stuff, and you find the cash. When you seize all of that, yes, you can seize all of that, and after a conviction, then that money would get forfeited. It makes complete sense to me. But the woman traveling to the airport with $43,000, or the daughter who's traveling with her father's money through an airport, going to literally go put it in a bank. Now, I know people are saying, Steve, why didn't he put it in a bank? Who knows? Who cares? He has the right to give the money to his daughter and say, put that in a bank for me. And she has the right to do that. It's America. And so it's just strange how our thinking shifts. So I've had people say, but why are you traveling that kind of cash? You probably are up to no good. Suspicion means you can take my money? No, the Constitution doesn't say that anywhere. Nowhere does it say that, if someone's suspicious, you can take their stuff. It doesn't say that. So civil asset forfeiture is a scourge on our nation. It's a scourge on the land. And CJ Cirmello wrote the story for Reason.com, sent to me by Andrew, Joseph, Dennis, Jay, Douglas, and Alan, and a rare, unedited video preceded what I'm about to say. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. A great many people, and more all the time, live their entire lives without ever once sleeping out under the stars.